share his bed. Not that marrying an earl was objectionable, for Miranda had gone to Miss Emery's establishment for the education of genteel young ladies, and knew her duty to her family and country. But it was marrying this earl that Miranda found so objectionable. Earls were supposed to be elegant and sophisticated, charming company in any situation, a gentleman at all times, and, well, frankly, more often than not, they should be a little bit heroic. Was that too much to ask for? Unfortunately, the Earl of Oxley was none of these things. Even while his mother bemoaned his lowering match, the Earl sat beside his future bride and boasted to anyone who would listen about the pair of goers at Tattersall's he'd picked up now that he had a rich little goer of his own. Miranda had closed her eyes and snapped her mouth shut to refrain from telling the obtuse man that she thought he was putting the cart before the horse, since they weren't married yet. Oh, if only she was a little bit ruined, Miranda thought. Just enough so Oxley would cry off, so she could have a chance to find the man of her dreams, a knight in shining armour who would love her for more than her fortune, a proper gentleman who would kiss her gently and lovingly, make her toes curl inside her slippers and her heart beat fast. But such a fate seemed well beyond her grasp as the house lights came up, and there was her hero beside her, leering at her as if she were a combination between a ripe peach and a bucket of gold. He sent her stomach lurching. She would even have been content to marry a dull sort like Lord Sedgwick if the man hadn't already been wed to his delightful Emmeline. If only Lady Sedgwick had been part of their party here at the opera, she would have put Lady Oxley in her place and buoyed Miranda's sagging spirits in that sparkling way of hers. Instead, she had only Lord Sedgwick's company, and he was quite preoccupied by some problem, given the deep crease in his brow. Even if he hadn't seemed so worried, Miranda knew it was hardly proper to pour her heart out to the staid baron, no matter how exceptional Lady Sedgwick claimed him to be. So instead, Miranda made a hasty excuse to her mother as the intermission began, ignoring the good woman's protests that she shouldn't leave poor Oxley alone, and fled the box, looking for some place to escape to, if only until they darkened the lights again. What she found was an alcove in the back of the hall, far from the rest of the ton, who were parading about the opera, showing off new gowns or gossiping about the latest news. There in the privacy of that darkened corner, Miranda gave herself over to a very improper spate of tears. She cried until the bell rang for everyone to return to their seats. The humiliation of it all. She was no better than one of the horses down at Tattersall's. Bloodlines indeed. Miranda's mother came from a good and noble family, one with a far greater history than anything Lady Oxley could claim. So calling up that proud tradition, Miranda wiped away the evidence of her despair and straightened her shoulders, girding herself for the rest of the evening, for the rest of her life. But suddenly her life took a very different turn.
Giselle, my dearest goddess, how glad I am to see you,
a man whispered into her ear, taking her by the hand and spinning her around. She flew into his chest, and before she could utter a word, he caught her lips in a searing kiss. Miranda struggled against the rogue, twisting in his grasp, her hands balling up and pounding at his shoulders. Oh, dear heavens! Her eyes sprang open. Lord John Tremont! Kissing her! Dear heavens! Didn't he know this wasn't proper? Obviously not, for his lips teased and taunted hers, and when she opened her mouth to protest, his tongue swiped across hers, sending the most frightening thrill through her limbs, the kind she could never have imagined. Why, it made her toes curl up inside her slippers. No wonder most of the ton called him Mad Jack Tremont, for this spell he was casting over her was utter madness. She continued to struggle, only because she knew she was supposed to, and Mad Jack responded by pressing her up against the wall, pinning her in place with his hips, making his point that there was no escape. Miranda gasped as his entire body covered hers, left her with an intimate knowledge of this man's intent, for there it was, hard and